our courts and tribunals, the judiciary and the practice of the legal profession. As the President of the Law Society of New South Wales, I'm honoured to represent the solicitors of this state in that process. A course of events occurring some 44 years ago, quite fortuitously, saw a kid from Melbourne finding himself before you tonight as a representative of almost 30,000 solicitors in this state. This is, of course, an enormous honour and a very humbling experience. Having now spent some 2/3 of my life living in this wonderful city, working in one of the finest legal systems and with some of the best lawyers in this country that this country has produced, I think I've been well and truly inculcated into the New South Wales way of life. Well, almost. As difficult as this might be for some here tonight, I still think that AFL is the greatest sport. There can't be a controversy about that, can there? I grew up in Bentley, a suburb in southeastern Melbourne. I studied law not because it was a family tradition, far from it. On my family tree, there wasn't a lawyer in sight. What in part steered me toward the law was a keen interest in humanities, which is code for I really didn't like maths and science. But my career choice was influenced in no small measure by the frequent mention and obvious trust my parents placed in the family solicitor, Joe Sackville, who, by the way, happened to be the father of Justice Ronald Sackville. The name Joe Sackville was frequently mentioned in our home when my parents were discussing business and financial matters. The profound respect that they had for him and his counsel created a lasting impression on me. Both my parents worked hard to give me opportunities and that education can bring, and to instill in me a strong work ethic. After the Second World War, Dad, along with two of his older brothers, ran a car tyre business. The smell of car tyres still evokes vivid memories of the many hours I spent watching him sell tyres and getting down on his hands and knees and taking tyres on and off cars. Dad passed away a few years ago, and Mum couldn't make the trip up here, but I'm pretty sure they would have got a kick had they been here tonight. A chance meeting of my future wife Jenny in a car we happened to share in Brisbane at a sports carnival some years ago saw the beginning of a 2-year-long distance courtship. We were at the time competing for different states. Others might relate to this, but never have I moved so quickly to race around to the other side of the car just to get a better look. Telecom and Ansett student discount airfares were the glue that kept us together. When we married, the decision was made that I'd work in Sydney for a year while Jenny completed her studies at Teachers College, after which we were going to move back to Melbourne. I remember well my own efforts to find a job all those years ago. They sent it on a phone book and writing to those firms that had their names in bold print. Because after all, they must be good if they can afford bold print. It was actually a chance conversation with my mother-in-law that changed things for me. Quite by coincidence, she happened to mention that her mother worked as a secretary at Minter Simpson & Co. some years earlier. And that led me to apply for the job with that firm. I was fortunate to obtain employment with Minters, and somehow the decision to move back to Melbourne disappeared. I started work on the 7th of January 1974. I was shown a small office that was bursting with files, which I was told represented the firm's debt collection practice. It was my first exposure to litigation and the work of some former Minter Simpson & Co. employees who had since gone to the bar. The initials RDG, KM and CRE were on the files, which meant very little to me at the time, but the decades that followed, all three, Roger Giles, aka Thin Roger, Keith Mason and Clifford Einstein, would be known for the enormous contribution that each made to the legal profession in the courts of this state. When I joined Minters, I had a choice. I could undertake articles, or I could go to the newly established College of Law. After speaking with my wife's uncle, Justice Sam Isaacs, I decided to stick with articles. A very fortunate decision. Australia was undergoing a recession at the time, and not long after my articles commenced, firms started to let people go. My master solicitor sometime later told me that it was only because of my articles that I actually survived the cut. I've spent, as you've heard, my entire working life at the one firm, for the most part in dispute resolution. I have worked and continue to work with truly superb lawyers. A few continued the journey with me at Minters, others moved to other firms, in-house, to the bar, or onto the commercial world. I've also had the privilege of working with many barristers over the years, with quite a few accepting an appointment to the bench, and I'm pleased to see many of the judges here tonight. I'm particularly honoured by the attendance of my many Minters colleagues with whom I've worked so closely over the years, as well as the chairman of my firm, Bruce Cowley, who has come from Brisbane to be here tonight, and also Nikki Green, the managing partner of our Sydney office. Thank you. Anyway, enough about me. Now let me move on to what is really important in the year ahead. It is traditional on occasions such as this for the new president to outline his or her goals for the year ahead. I have set myself a number of goals that I want to talk about tonight. First and foremost for me is a focus on resourcing of the courts, both federal and state, and access to justice. As long as we have a justice system, there have been those who have struggled to access it. There are also those whose experience within our systems has been costly, delayed, and difficult to grasp. Equally important to having age-old rights and freedoms is being aware of them and being in a position to exercise them. Put simply, access to justice is also about having access to legal advice. Championing access to justice is of particular importance to promoting the rule of law in Australia because it allows all people to stand equally before a very consistent application of the law. Often, however, securing access to justice is more a matter of practical reality than it is of lofty notions. Fighting for adequacy and consistency in funding for legal assistance programs, community legal centres, the operations of Legal Aid New South Wales, as well as our courts and tribunals, is central to achieving these aims. I'd like to take the opportunity to commend the Attorney-General and the New South Wales Government on the recent announcement of an additional $20 million in funding to address a growing backlog of criminal cases in the District Court. I believe we all recognise that much more will be needed to clear the backlog and to ease the pressure on the District Court judges and also on the local court magistrates who are forced to work under the cutbacks and the flow-on effects caused by the delay in judicial appointments. The Law Society's advocacy for the adequate funding of the courts will include the Family Court and the Federal Circuit Court that are both at a crisis point and in which vulnerable families are left in the balance when a just resolution is delayed. One can only imagine the impact the delays at resolving custody matters is having on the children who are caught in the middle. The very social fabric of society is being stretched almost to breaking point by a justice system that sees inordinate delays both in the district court criminal trials, where the average time to finalise a matter is now around 369 days, and in the Federal Circuit Court, where family law hearings are being set down in 2017. Anecdotally, I've been told that one judge is now talking about listing matters in 2018 because of the inordinate workload. That's simply not good enough. Courts are the cornerstone of the rule of law and should not have their value to the community undermined or assessed by some formulaic accounting benchmark. A properly resourced and fully functioning court system, plus adequate funding for community legal centres, is no less important than the proper and adequate resourcing of the health and the education sectors. When I first set foot in a law firm all those years ago, I could not for for a single moment have imagined how quickly and dramatically legal practice would change in the space of 40 years. Back then, there was not a computer in sight. Fast forward to 2016, you'll find on my desk at Minters 2 screens plus a laptop, complemented by 2 iPads. Those of us who are from the baby boomer generation will remember when telephones were rotary dial, and I had to explain to one of my colleagues at work what a rotary dial telephone was. Now I can dial a number from my computer screen, or if I like, I can use one of my 2 mobile phones to do that. And back when I started out, even the lowliest article clerk had an office. Even the lowliest article clerk had an office. Today, the traditional lawyer's office, 4 walls and a door, is heading for extinction, and is rapidly being replaced by the open plan workstation. In keeping up with the frantic pace of technological development, there are ongoing changes to the way legal services are delivered, as well as to the legal structures by which practices provide their services. The lawyers here tonight will be well aware that competition amongst the legal profession has never been fiercer, nor have clients been more demanding or discerning when it comes to fees and value for money. We'd be fooling ourselves if we think that this rapid evolution of legal practice will stop or even slow down. If there is a crystal ball for lawyers to peer into, what they will see, if there is anything to see at all, is the word disruption. We know more changes are coming. What we do not know is precisely what they will be and when they will occur, which is why we cannot, as a profession, afford to sit back and deal with change on the run. I'm pleased, therefore, to be able to say that the Law Societies Council has unanimously resolved to establish a committee to examine the future of legal services and the legal profession in New South Wales. This is vitally important if we are going to be prepared as best we can for the changes that will inevitably come. This will be a bespoke committee made up not just of lawyers, but those who can offer a broad level of input on the anticipated changes that lie ahead. The Futures Committee will be consulting with the wider community as well as the legal profession, and will be tasked to provide its first report by the end of the year. I'm convinced that placing good relationships at the heart of an organisation is the key to its success. As such, it will be my priority to meet and speak with councillors on a regular basis and focus on the productive output that comes from teamwork when councillors work together. I have the very good fortune to be part of a fantastic group of Law Society councillors, a blend of experience and youth who are dedicated, innovative and hardworking. Building on the determination of my predecessors to engage with regional law societies, I will sustain a dialogue with regional presidents and jointly ensure that the elements of the Executive and wider Council maintain a rapport with our regions. Equally important is maintaining a strong relationship with our young lawyers through the Office of the President and keeping open the lines of communication with the presidents of other state and territory law societies. As much as we look to the future, we must also be aware of the past. As a student of history, I've always had a very keen interest in the development of the law of this state and the importance of not losing sight of our past when learning to cope with the rapid changes to the way in which we conduct our practices. For as novelist Marcus Garvey wrote, a people without knowledge of their past history, origin and culture is like a tree without roots. It is with this in mind, as well as the importance of documenting our past, that Michael Pelly has been commissioned to write the history of the Law Society of New South Wales. The book is expected to be published and available to members and the public in the second half of this year. Mr. Pelly has been tasked to chronicle the almost 175-year history of the Law Society of New South Wales, back to its establishment in 1842 of the Sydney Law Library, or the Sydney Law Library Society as its members then referred to it. My own firm traces its origins back to 1827, when Frederick Wright Unwin hung up his shingle. He was joined in 1837 by Ronald Randolph Want. Of personal significance to me is that Mr. Want was a member of the inaugural Sydney Law Library in 1842, and in 1864, the second president of the New South Wales Law Institute. Also, John Stevenson, a partner in the firm of Perkins, Stevenson and Linton that merged with Minter Simpson & Co in the 1980s, was from 1939 to 1940 the president of the Incorporated Law Society, later the Law Society of New South Wales. In much the same vein, it is also important to remember another aspect, an important aspect of our past. We're almost halfway through commemorating the 100th anniversary of the war to end all wars, First World War. Historian Tony Cunneen has found that by the end of the war in 1918, almost 239 law clerks, solicitors, law clerks and article clerks had served in the armed forces. Out of the New South Wales casualties during the war, 21 of those who died were solicitors. To coincide with the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Fromelles on the Western Front, the Society will on the 19th of July this year be unveiling an Honours Board. The board will recognise the service and sacrifices, including for some, the ultimate sacrifice, made by solicitors, article clerks and law clerks of this state during the First World War. Now let me very briefly mention three other goals for this year: gender equality, pro bono and graduate employment. First, the Law Society is committed to parity of gender at the highest possible levels. As such, championing the potential of our entire membership by fostering the advancement of women will be our priority for me, and 2016 will see the next chapter of our Advancement of Women project. Second, is further facilitating the high standards and targets for pro bono representation, both within the Law Society and amongst legal firms. The enormous amount of pro bono work of lawyers of this state is done without fanfare and often goes completely unrecognised. A good example, and one of many, is the hundreds of solicitors who are seconded to and trained by PIAC to provide legal advice at the Homeless Persons Legal Clinic at no cost. Third, today the process for finding employment with a law firm, as I well and truly know, is more sophisticated, tougher and competitive than ever before, and so there will be a continuing focus on improving graduate employment through the Law Society's Graduate Working Group. Some of the goals I've mentioned might be ambitious, and I'm under no illusions. Ticking the boxes next to each of them by the 31st of December this year will be a really big ask. Fortunately, much of what I'm aiming for is a continuation of the great work of my immediate predecessors, as well as their counsels, and I expect that those succeeding me will also be picking up the baton. Tonight, I want to especially acknowledge the work of my predecessor, John Eads. John championed a renewed focus on ethics, increased engagement with regional solicitors, and the very personal cause of motor neurone disease in Australia. Together with the entire leadership of the Law Society, I remain grateful to John for his hard work and for his commitment. The key source of the Society's strength and commitment is born out of the hard work of its staff, who have been so superbly led by CEO Michael Tipple. If it were not for them, the Law Society would not be able to fulfil its vision and mission. To each of them, I sincerely say thank you, and I very much look forward to working with you this year. Finally, I want to talk about something that is very important to the Law Society, and to me, very personal. Each year it is customary for the incoming President to nominate a charity for which funds will be raised throughout the year. There are many worthwhile causes from which a President of the Law Society must choose just one. One cause which has been close to my heart and deserving of greater awareness is that of Ovarian Cancer Australia. This is an insidious disease which takes the lives of so many mothers, wives and daughters within our community. This cause has particular resonance for me and for many here this evening. On the 7th of February 2013, tragically an outstanding young woman and lawyer, Jennifer Barton, whose photos appear on the screen, succumbed to the disease. Jennifer, or Jen, as she was known to us, joined Minter Ellison as a summer clerk in 2006 and then worked as a paralegal before commencing with the firm as a full-time graduate. She married Paul Barton the same year. 6 months later, Jen was diagnosed with the disease. Although undergoing major surgery and chemotherapy in December 2008, Jen was admitted as a solicitor. In the words of James Beaton, her supervising partner, Jen was a wonderful friend to many of us, a genuinely warm and caring human being. She was a joy to work with. In our team, her baking skills were legendary, and she fattened us up with cupcakes, wicked macaroons, and delightful personalised birthday cakes. For my part, Jen was a superb lawyer who was destined for great things. And I agree with James, her baking skills were legendary. I will never forget how on my 60th birthday, she surprised me in the office with a cake she baked, decorated in the Collingwood football colours. As well as being an exceptionally talented lawyer, Jen was blessed with an abundance of humility and common sense. Her colleagues observed in Jen someone with unbelievable strength of character throughout her illness. She insisted on maintaining a full workload while undergoing treatment. It was an all too regular occurrence to see Jen head out of the office on the Friday afternoon with the announcement, "I'm off to chemo." And a few hours later, she would log on at home and start working. I'm deeply touched by the presence of Jen's parents, Sue and Paul Taylor, and Jen's husband, Paul Barton, who are with us here this evening. I want you to know that Jen was one of the bravest persons I've ever known. Continued to work with boundless energy and determination. Despite the debilitating effect of her illness and treatment, she was truly inspirational. Every day, 4 women are diagnosed with ovarian cancer, with only half expected to survive beyond the next 5 years. However, if ovarian cancer is diagnosed at an early stage, women have an 80% chance of being alive and well at the 5-year post-diagnosis mark. The key is to equip the wider community with awareness about the symptoms. Through the Law Society's support, and yours too, we hope to enable the establishment of a new community support worker position in New South Wales by Ovarian Cancer Australia. This month is Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. I encourage everyone to take a look at the material on your tables and to show your support for their vital work by registering to host an afternoon teal event, teal being the signature colour of Ovarian Cancer Australia. And please, this month, wear the teal ribbon. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a combination of luck, timing, assistance, and a chance conversation that combined to see me journey from Bentley, Melbourne to Phillip Street, Sydney. It will be a combination of the legacy of my predecessors, the great team around me, and the force of this profession's commitment to those great values of access to justice and rule of law that will lead to the fulfilment of the goals I've outlined this evening. I'd like to conclude by saying again how honoured and privileged I feel to be the representative of the solicitors of this state, and I commit myself to serve them and the community fully in the year ahead. On that note, I wish you a very successful, safe and productive 2016. Thank you.